The writer Aaron Sorkin has said that what makes great dramatic writing is intention and obstacle. Someone needs to want something really bad, and there needs to be something really big standing in their way of getting it. What makes a story dramatic is the tactics the character uses to overcome that obstacle. And I think it's the exact same at work. Every one of us is working not only for a paycheck, but for something bigger. Maybe it's pay raises or promotions. Maybe it's a house or college for our kids. Maybe we're digging our way out of debt or aiming to travel the world. Or maybe we've decided to gamble on ourselves and try a completely different career. The privilege of being a leader is to understand where our people are headed and do our best to remove the obstacles and clear the way so they can arrive safely. This is A-Listed. So Jose Halupa, welcome to A-Listed.
Thank you, David.
You're in the movie business.
Yep.
So I have to ask you, the first question is, what was the first movie that you remember seeing in a theater?
Yeah, so it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I'm pretty sure it was at the Yorkdale Theater.
What's your go-to snack when you are in a theater?
Oh, 100% popcorn.
Yeah.
It has to be popcorn.
And is there butter? What do you do with it?
So I like butter. I will also have it with no butter and go with a little bit of seasoning. Dill pickle seasoning is always a good
Dill
way.
pickle?
Yeah, dill pickle is always good on your popcorn.
And what drink do you have with that?
Classic Coke.
Classic Coke?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Traditionalist when it comes to that.
I love it. So a couple years ago, you and I had the opportunity to sit next to each other at our ACE event.
Yeah.
And I remember asking you at that time how long you'd been with Cineplex. And at the time you said, I think it was 21 years at that time, 24 years now.
Yeah.
And I asked you how many jobs that you'd had in that period. And you said 10. And I asked you what your first job was.
Yep.
What did you say it was?
I was scooping popcorn.
And what was your second job?
And my second job was leading people who scoop popcorn.
Yeah.
And then I was a manager in the theater. And then I was a senior manager in the theater. And then I moved into training and development and supporting people to execute in our buildings. And then I became an instructional designer. And then I moved to the office and I did technical training and engagement with people to leverage tools and systems while I continued to do instructional design. And then I got a knock on the door saying, do you want to come back to operations? And I came back to operations, and that's where I am now.
I love it. I asked you this then, but I'm going to ask you again now. What was it you thought that existed at the company at that time to allow you to have such an interesting path and write such interesting stories?
So I think it always, for me, it always comes down to it was the support of the people I work with, right? So I always had champions who were there with me. I have the general manager, who was the general manager at the theater I started, still works with the company.
Really?
He leads a region now.
Really?
I left for a little while when I went to BC, and funny enough, I still worked at a movie theater once I got there. But when I was moving back to Toronto, I called him up and I was like, hey, is there a position for me? And he said, absolutely. And he brought me back. But he was a champion. He was always a champion of me when I worked with him. And he's the person who got me to the management role. And then, that kind of drove me wanting to do more because I kept enjoying what I was doing in the business. And I've talked about it with friends before. And we always say there's this lightning in the bottle that somehow Cineplex has captured. We don't know what the special sauce in that lightning is and how it got captured. But just the people you work with, the attitudes, the appreciation people show, the commitment to their job, to each other it's unique. And anyone who's ever left, happy in their new roles and such, will always say though that there's something that they still miss there. That was that and we call it that lightning we don't know what it is.
I want to press you on that a little bit because there's, I always talk about the difference between employee engagement and employee experience. And I think employee engagement is about the commitment someone makes to doing the job they're paid to do. But the employee experience is about an organization's commitment to create conditions so that people can be engaged. You're not alone in having that lightning in the bottle story. So what do you think some of those conditions are? I
think often I'll say when we say things, we mean them. So when there is a call to we're all going to pitch in to get this building open by X date. That call goes heard. It never goes unheard. The reality is everyone is going to pitch in and make sure that happens. When we pick up new lingo and terminology, it takes on its own life. And there's, the other side of it is when we're trying to change that, it's hard because it's so ingrained. So, just leading into the pandemic and through the pandemic, the one Cineplex was kind of a rallying cry that came up. And, now we're moving away from that. We have new values and we're focusing on those new values. Doesn't mean that one Cineplex isn't valuable on its own, but that's, not the lingo of the future, but it, galvanized for a set of employee, like, no one left behind. Everyone was there. Everyone was going to be taken care of. And, you think about everything that happened during COVID. Our company did everything possible to take care of all their employees.
I think one of the key conditions an organization creates is they make their employees change ready, or they ensure that they're change ready. What role do you think appreciation has in making that true? Yeah,
it's interesting because I think you always have to consider like the change management part of any process, and there's the appreciation for the effort and the challenges people are going to go through when you're making that change happen. But there's also, and we always try to get ahead of change management. So then there's that appreciation of like appreciating that change won't be easy. So what can we do to appreciate the things people are doing? What can we do to appreciate the part of something that is a challenge for that person to make it easier as we kind of move through these different transitions and these different periods?
Why are you such a big believer in appreciation? Is it your personal experience?
So yeah, I'd say absolutely. It's personal experience. I touched on, like, I started as a cast member at one of our theaters, and Rob, the general manager there, was very engaging, very focused on appreciation person. And I think he bled that. So, it was very easy to get, pulled into it and see the value of it. And long before there was platforms like Achievers out there, we had a drop in your bucket program, and it's based on a book to fill your bucket. I don't remember the name of the author or the book anymore, but we printed droplets and we would write messages and post them on a corkboard. And the idea was, I'm going to fill your bucket with good things as opposed to take out of your bucket. And so you'd walk down this hallway and there'd be all these messages of appreciation from cast members to cast members, from managers to cast, from cast to managers. And I think, you walk by that, and how do you not smile when you read the nice things that people are saying? I think that probably ingrained in me that importance of appreciation, and Rob letting me lead that program as a manager at that time and help kind of set it up and do things, I think, embedded it in me as a core thing for myself.
I love that. My mother-in-law will often say, it's nice to be nice. And I've heard you say something similar about the cast member experience, and how good it feels to work somewhere that feels good. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I have to give credit to Natalie, our general manager in Nanaimo, for this. And she's a huge proponent of appreciation and engagement and thanking people. And we have lots of expectations of our teams, and one of the expectations is that they are appreciative, that they engage with people, that they thank them, that they do all those things. And to the point where we say, you should be sending an appreciation at least twice every day you work. So, and then we tell them to do the math, right, of how many appreciations that means they might have sent if that's what they did. And Natalie kind of turned it around one day and was talking to her managers and said, but isn't it just nice to say nice things to people? Wouldn't you want to come to work to a place that's nice? The message is just a thank you, and that's a very simple message or a more meaningful message. They all drive the same thing, that it's nice, it's being nice to each other, and it's nice to come work somewhere where people are nice.
I love that. Talk to me a little bit about culture. Okay. And I think culture is a misunderstood term.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, I've heard, even within your organization, we've talked about a culture of recognition, a culture of appreciation. But of late, I'm hearing the conversation much more about cultures of performance. How is that showing up inside your organization?
First I'll say, and I brought this for you, it's our new values.
I love it.
So that's one way that I think that's coming to life for us at Cineplex. And it's that shift from the one Cineplex. It's also a shift, just, we used to have one word values, right? Mm-hmm. Innovation, that was one of our values. That can mean so many different things. And there's a statement and a definition of it. But, when you just hear that that's the value to someone who doesn't connect it and understand all of it, they don't necessarily know how it necessarily always fits in. So now we have statement words that are a little bit grander, a little bit more, what we want to achieve, right? So we have own it, we have win together, lead with heart, and bring the fun. They're more emotional, the values. They're more around the, what we want to bring from ourselves individually into what we do every day, and drive performance through those values, right? So, we often joke around in the office around different things, and when we're working through the different things, we'll call it out and be like, we got to bring the fun, right? Like, let's not get so focused on just the nitty gritty. Where are we bringing the fun for this, right? Are we going to win on this together? And so we rolled these out not very long ago, and I've already kind of said we grab onto these things at Cineplex, and they are full on grabbed in everywhere. People use the terminology in meetings, and will message people about if they believe they're not living the values, but also when they are living those values.
How do you embed it that way? I mean, you've been doing it that way for a long time, so you've taught people and you've learned from people. How do you embed it?
So one of the things that the company's taken in an approach this year is making sure that the executive leadership team, when they're speaking, they tie back their messages, what they're working on. So the bigger picture, how does it tie back to the values that we're driving? So that's one way they've talked about it. They also took a very, the word escapes me, but a very a point of view where they put their hearts out on their sleeve, right? Around the values they thought, and they talked about the values they thought they were not as strong in. So as an executive leader saying I think I can do better in lead with heart, and this is what I'm going to do about it. So they opened up, vulnerability. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. So there was that as well. And so again, it's the people part. It always comes back to me, the people part, right? So now, you have one of your executive leaders, and they're presenting themselves fully as a person who could be your friend, your partner in life. They're not just a person you work with, right? And you get a little bit more out of them, a little bit more about who they are, what makes them tick.
Does the postcard describe some things?
So it does. It has a couple statements on there. So for example, when we talk about own it, it's we follow through, we own the outcome, and we hold ourselves up to higher standards. Right. And then we've got, a little bit more on the back of it, which, you can happily enjoy that.
Accept gifts. I love it. So you talked about the tie-in to some of your leaders. I'm curious about the tie-in that you see of appreciation to your guests.
Yeah. I mean, the reason we want to leverage a platform like it's yours is because we want to be able to thank our employees when we see them doing the right thing. And it's something we talk about in operations all the time. It's easy to catch people doing the wrong things. It's a lot harder to catch people doing the right things. And so when you do, you need to make sure that you recognize and reward them for that, so that we can see those behaviors happen more often, because those good behaviors drive good guest experiences. And if I go back to Natalie's point around isn't it nice to come somewhere where people are just nice? When people come into your building who are guests, they can tell. There's the same way that when you sit in an auditorium and you laugh together with people, or when I saw Interstellar, I literally pulled my feet up off the ground when they're waiting for the impending water tsunami to kill them. That auditorium all had that feeling of anxiety together. So when you walk into a space and employees are happy, there's no reason to think you wouldn't feel that as well, right? And if you walk into a space and you feel people are unhappy or stressed or anxious, you're going to walk in and feel that as a guest. And that impacts you and impacts your feelings about your experience. But if you walk in and people are just nice and friendly and approachable, I think you take that in, and that enhances your experience. And in a world where there is lots of pressures externally, and you're choosing Cineplex as a place to escape, to get away from things, I would hope that you walk in and immediately feel at ease about the experience you're going to have. That you're going to have a good time. That you're going to escape for a little bit.
You measure that impact too, though.
We do measure that. Yes. Yeah. We measure it through net promoter scores and a myriad of other, underlying measurables that take into consideration things like, what were your feelings about the auditorium's level of cleanliness? Was the lobby clean? Was the cast member friendly? Did they greet you? Did they thank you? I could go on. There's many of those things. And we build programs around that.
But you see the connection, and you're able to measure the connection between appreciation and some of those other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And we ran a very specific program, and it was tied to specifically looking at what behaviors would drive our net promoter score. And we know the key drivers of that. So we know the auditorium experience impacts that. We know that the overall experience, the overall food experience impacts that, and a couple other things. So then we said, so what's the actionable part of that? Because, hey, David, make the auditorium experience better. Good challenge, right? Yeah, how, right?
How do I do it?
Exactly. So when we break down the auditorium experience and we see what is the leading cause of someone saying they did not have a good auditorium experience, it was cleanliness of the auditorium. Perfect. That is actionable now. So let's run some sort of incentive, something that are going to get people behind doing things to make sure that we have a good auditorium cleanliness level. And so we tied reward to that. So that we gave our managers budget allocation so they could reward their employees a lot more when they saw them going above and beyond, or any time that they were able to see that they were doing something that drove that tactile element, that drove the experience part for the guest. And so we were able to, in 41% of our locations, drive an increase in our net promoter scores when that program was running, which was amazing.
I think that this is a really key call out, which is that, it does feel nice to be recognized, to be thanked, to be seen, valued, and appreciated. But it also sends a signal to, when that recognition is personal and specific and impact oriented, to the individual and to all cast members of what good can look like, what the gap between good and great might be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things we did with that program, which I think kind of ties into like that showing the appreciation part of it, is typically we reward when people win. Right. Like, and we are a very competitive organization. So we reward at winning. And for this program, we said, we're going to reward you when you win, but we're going to support you if you're at the bottom.
I think it's
so
critical.
The people, the theaters who were at the bottom got the exact same allocation of reward points as the people who were winning. And so it was a constant drive to be better. And they're like, okay, I've been given a tool so I can do better. It's not just I have to do better. I've been given a tool to do better. Yeah. And if I continue to do better, I can continue to receive that tool because now I'm at the top. And I'm winning, love that. Right? So it was a very different approach for us. And we think that drove a lot of engagement because we didn't create situations where people felt that they were handed an impossible task or that they were never going to participate.
How did you decide to address the bottom in that way, so to speak?
I don't remember exactly. I can't take credit for it because I know it wasn't my idea. I liked the idea and I gave a big thumbs up to it when I heard it. And it was probably Courtney in conversations with our CSM to figure out what would be different, interesting ways to make something like that happen where we could, leverage the points, and we had a healthy budget of points we had available. So there was no gun shyness around, just making sure that we made those points available. And they brought that forward as an idea. I'm like, let's run with it. Let's see what happens.
I love it.
And we run it 2 years in a row. We're going to run it a third year in a row. We tie it into a particular part of our season of business when we think that we might have the most attendance and there's a really good reason to make sure more people have a good experience. And when there's more attendance, it's harder to drive those types of experiences. So we want to make sure we give people extra motivation.
Thinking about you again, what's one of the most meaningful recognitions or moments of appreciation that you've been on the receiving end of?
Yeah. So I don't think for sure that there's one moment. I think that what I would say is having worked somewhere and worked with people that recognized you often for all the little things that you did. I think when you work on something that's a larger project or something like that, there's maybe an expectation you're going to be recognized for getting to that completion, but I don't think you necessarily expect that people are going to thank you because you went and helped them with an Excel problem, other than like the thanks, Jose, as you walk out the office. But then when you get that more meaningful thank you that says, I was really stuck with that problem. You saved me like hours of work today. I really appreciate your knowledge and that you took the time to help me. That is meaningful on a small little thing that you did for somebody. And so I knew you were going to ask me that. And so I was kind of like, I don't know. And I was like, I think it's actually that lots of appreciations throughout. I think it's all of the appreciation I've gotten from different cheerleaders along the way have been really meaningful. I think if I had to pick like one thing is, Rob, same person, one time said to me, he's like, you're very good at taking feedback. And I appreciate that I can share things with you and that you're able to like hear what I'm saying. And I was like, I think that's a good trait. Sure, I'll take that.
Do you think there's a link between that previous program you talked about where you addressed the bottom and the way you value being acknowledged for the little things? Is that
That's interesting.
Is that like this idea that effort is worth acknowledgement?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. People don't put effort because they want to fail. They put effort because they want to be successful, because they want the the team to be successful or the organization to be successful. And so I think that you should recognize that. There's a side of that where maybe someone needs coaching, but that's a business side of things. And we don't really need to get into that today, but there is that side of people getting development and training and coaching. But I think appreciating what people are doing, the things that they're bringing forward, drive them to want to do more, to want to then hear the feedback when there's coaching going on.
When you think about your journey, so 24 years this month, 10 jobs, I think.
Something like that.
Something like that.
There's,
I'm guessing, a community, a village of people that have been in the Jose business to help you get to where you are.
Yeah.
Is there an individual or a group of people that you feel you want to call out to appreciate?
I've already called out Rob a couple times, so I think I'll give Rob some credit, and that's good. I would say, there's a mix of different people in different areas. When I was on the training team, I think the word team very well defined how everyone there worked. There's different levels within the team organizationally, but everything was a team effort all the time. Everyone bought in, everyone supported each other. And so, I would say that Deslin Woods, who supported us on that team at that time, was someone who was a huge champion of myself and said very many nice things to me at different times that, kind of kept me engaged. And even when that opportunity to change and move to operations came, that would be me leaving her team. And she was very supportive of that. We had very honest conversation. And she said that she thinks that that's where I'm going to be even more impactful and more successful. And so it felt good to make that decision and feel like I wasn't letting anyone down. I think more recently, I'd say Biasho, who's one of my colleagues I work with in operations, has just been one of those people who has coached and guided me and given me feedback and just kind of helped me through different development areas and, making sure that I'm being successful, and has shown a genuine interest in my success. And so I have to, thank him for actually putting in that effort to show that the personal commitment to my success at times.
I love those stories. Part of what we do at the Workforce Institute is study the science of what appreciation delivers. And at the highest level, we know that when people feel frequently appreciated and meaningfully appreciated, they feel better, they perform better. But I think there are scores of stories of the surprising impact that recognition or appreciation might have. I know you have a couple. Can you share one or two with us?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say one thing too. I can be lucky to say I've never had a bad manager, so that's helped me for sure. Okay, so back to your original question of just success through appreciation.
Yeah.
Ooh, it is tough because we've seen lots of different things like that. I think a lot of times for us, it's helped us with people who may have maybe gone unnoticed, like the quiet people there.
Yes.
And sometimes through either that person being recognized, it brought them a little bit more to the forefront, and you've had an opportunity to connect with them and understand them a little bit better. And then they've had an opportunity to grow. But then there's the other side of it, is the people who've engaging with people. And suddenly you start to see this person who was leading a team successfully operationally, but now leading them successfully, for lack of a better word, emotionally, right? Because they're there creating an environment that makes everyone they work with successful, because they feel supported, they feel appreciated, they feel that the person leading them is in it for them more than anything. And that's Natalie's story right there. I'd say Natalie being the person who took that on and created challenges within her own regions and competitions against other theaters. And that brought that entire region to a different level of engagement, and how they were all being successful around how they engaged with their employees.
I love that. Who else do you think should be on this show?
Who else? I mean, selfishly, I would love Courtney Patterson Halloway on my team to join.
I love
the
that.
Call. Who else should be on the call on this? It's a really tough one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. Selfish, I'm going to say more people from Cineplex.
I love it. I love that.
Why not?
I love a shameless plug.
I think, honestly, it'd be interesting to hear a little bit more sometimes for some of the Achievers folks themselves.
Okay.
And, you guys obviously should know best what makes things tick. And it'd be interesting to see different people's perspective within Achievers that might bring things forward. And I'd say that not the typical person, maybe.
Sure.
Maybe the person who doesn't usually get to do this would be the one who might have a very interesting perspective.
So that is not a vote for me. You're not voting
Well, you're
for
the
me.
host, so you're here every day.
Okay, the way that I want to end is we're introducing this deck of cards, and there'll be a fuller deck, but I want you to pick a card, any card,
Yep.
and on the other side there's no math in these questions.
Perfect.
But you pick a card. Okay. And
Well,
so
I'll have to look.
Yeah.
Okay,
And so
all right.
you're going to answer this question. What's the question?
What project would you do if time and budget weren't constraints?
That's a good one.
That is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If time and budget weren't constraint, I mean, I know right now if I could do anything and I had an unlimited budget, is I would do anything and everything to change the experience of your comfort within all of our auditoriums across the circuit. So people love our recliner seats, people love our VIP experiences. We have buildings that are over 20 years old. I'd love to be able to go in and overnight just flip them all into luxurious, comfortable seats. We have that program where we are slowly converting over in key areas. Drop laser projection everywhere as well, which is another thing that we're working on as well. Those are very capital intensive, time intensive projects. And if I could snap a finger and make those things happen, 100% I would do those. And that would free us up to be able to do so many other things.
I love it. Jose, I appreciate you and your time on the podcast.
No
Thanks
problem.
so much for being with us.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Thank you. Welcome back to A-Listed. Emma Harvie now joins us. Emma, we had Jose Halupa from Cineplex on the show, and one of the things that I loved about our conversation was we asked him to pick a card, any card, and the question on that card was, if time and money were no obstacle, what would you do? And what did you think of what Jose had to say?
I loved it. I like the blue sky thinking. I also love that it sounds like they're already doing a lot of those things, and it's going to take them some time. They've got a vision of what that guest experience is going to look like in theaters, and they're well on the way to doing that, and he just wants to fast track it. He's obviously so passionate about that guest experience, right from his very first job when he was making popcorn through to today. It was really good to hear.
So if I were to put the same question to you, time and money, no obstacle, what are you doing with it?
I would love to do an Achievers Workforce Institute global lab event, and it would be talking with enterprise organizations around the world, involving universities, PhDs, to really truly correlate the relationship between recognition and business impact, is to prove with absolutely zero doubt that recognition is not a nice to have, it's a must have. And I'd love to do that around the world.
One of the things I talked about in my intro was about an organization's responsibility to create conditions so that folks could be engaged in the first place. And I thought Jose had a lot of interesting things to say about the great work that was already in place for him when he joined the organization scooping popcorn and later teaching people how to scoop popcorn. But the work that he and his team do to create those conditions. Did that strike you as well?
It did. They obviously had a culture of recognition for a very long time, and it was manual, it was handwritten cards, and a lot of organization have come from that place. And now that they've digitized it, they've made it transparent, they've made it available to everyone, no matter how and where you work. They're obviously making that connection of recognition to business impact. You can see how they've connected recognition to great employee experience and great guest experience, really sort of tying it into what's important to their business. And they can't do that if it's handwritten thank you cards. So it's really nice to see the progression that they've had.
I love it. Other highlights for you from the conversation?
I really like the way Jose talked about their new values and talked about the emotional connection, how they've reworded their values. But what I noted in listening to what their values are is that they're also action orientated. So it makes it much easier for, one, people to understand, and but secondly, to identify. We spend a lot of time helping leaders identify the moments to recognize. And when your values are written in a way that are action orientated, it's much easier to spot those great moments that you can recognize for.
I love that. It was such a great episode. I can't wait for the next one. Thank you for joining me, Emma. Thank all of you for listening or watching wherever you get your podcasts. This is A-Listed.